The first 1000 event of the 2022 US Open Series is here, and the women will be in Toronto for the National Bank Open. We have a loaded field, including world number 1 Iga Swiatek, the Williams sisters, Naomi, and other big names. I'll break down this crazy draw, go over all the first round popcorn matches, and dark horses before giving my prediction of who I think will take the title here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today. Top seed Iga Swiatek could open against Kudermetova before potentially playing Leylah Fernandez in the third round, Pegula in the quarters, Maria Sakkari in the semis, and Anett Kontaveit in the final. Swiatek is guaranteed to have a difficult opening round match either way you split it, as she'll either get, as I mentioned earlier, Kudermetova or Shelby Rogers. On paper, Kudermetova would be the tougher opponent as she's ranked 19th in the world and 10th in the WTA finals race. She's had some pretty solid results this season, including 3 finals and a Roland Garros quarters. Kudermetova, as I'm filming this, is currently in the semifinals of San Jose after picking up a solid straight sets win over Ons Jabeur. Shelby, on the other hand, has had rather more inconsistent results this season, but seems to be playing her best tennis at the moment. Rogers picked up some very good wins in San Jose, taking out Bianca Andreescu, Maria Sakkari, and Amanda Anisimova in straight sets. I think between the two, Rogers would give Iga more trouble, not to mention that Shelby's currently coached by Iga's former coach, Tomas, who definitely has some insight on the pole's game. I would also say that Iga isn't necessarily the same invincible player that we saw at the Sunshine Double, for example. That Cornet loss at Wimbledon wasn't necessarily a shock because everyone knows that grass is Iga's least favorite surface, but Swiatek ending her clay win streak at Warsaw was more telling, in my opinion. Caroline Garcia exposed the ways in which one needs to beat Swiatek, which is to take advantage of her weaker second serves and just play first strike tennis to keep her off balance and prevent her from doing damage herself. That being said, Iga is still incredibly difficult to beat, and with these women having that turnaround from California to Canada, I favor the better rested run number 1. Iga's third round opponent would likely be a lefty as Haddad Maia, Trevisan, and Fernandez all loom. Leylah would definitely be the most interesting matchup here for Swiatek, but my expectations for her aren't that high, as this is her first tournament since the French Open, where she suffered a grade 3 stress fracture to her right foot. Honestly, none of those players in the third round jump out to me as big threats to Swiatek, so I have her coming through to the quarters. Now, the bottom part of this section is where things get really interesting, as we have 2-time former champion Serena Williams, who plays her first event since Wimbledon. She'll open up against a qualifier and can next face either Victoria Azarenka or Belinda Bencic. My pick there is Bencic, as Azarenka recently bowed out of the City Open pretty meekly and appeared to be carrying some type of injury. Belinda's game has been solid this season, but she's definitely capable of being beaten, especially by Serena. Williams' performance against Harmony Tan at Wimbledon was pretty promising, and I still feel like she would have beaten most players, but Tan, like I said earlier, was just really tricky and crafty. Bencic is kind of crafty herself and tricky to face, but she won't give Serena nearly as many fits as Harmony did. Serena and Belinda actually played one another in Toronto 7 years ago when Bencic pulled off the upset en route to the title. I will go with the Swiss woman to take this match, once again due to match fitness concerns from Serena, but I wouldn't really be surprised if she got the scalp. Then Naomi Osaka is there as well, and she could have a battle in the second round with Garbine Muguruza. The Japanese woman doesn't have the easiest opener though, playing Kaya Kanepi in round 1, who's currently in the finals of DC. Naomi played in San Jose this week, falling to Coco Gauff in straights, where she didn't play her best. Osaka did mount a mini comeback, saving 7 match points and reeling off 3 straight games before Gauff closed the door. A lot of people put a bunch of stock in those last 3 games, even Naomi herself. She says she realized that basically she's that girl, she's confident again, and that she is the pressure. I'm gonna be real, all of that sounds nice, but we've heard this time and time again where Naomi says, I lost, but I found myself again. Then the fans get all excited and say, oh, she's taking it, before she loses early in the next tournament and the cycle continues itself again and again and again. I'm not saying that Osaka isn't going to improve, but to me, actions speak louder than words. That first serve percentage was far too low, that return was piss poor against Gauff, and she was simply too inconsistent from the ground a lot of the time. I think these things will come with more match play, and I do feel like she'll make it through these tougher opening rounds. Muguruza has notoriously played horrendous this season, but she does seem to bring it against the black players, so she could very well find her form here. Regardless, I am going to have Naomi move through there and also beat Bencic before losing to Swiatek in the quarterfinals. Wimbledon finalist Ons Jabeur could start against Qinwen Zheng before playing Daria Kasatkina in round 3, Maria Sakkari in the quarters, Iga Swiatek in the semis, and Anett Kontaveit in the finals. At the top of this section, Maria Sakkari is guaranteed to play an American in either Sofia Kenin or Sloane Stephens. Neither woman has a bunch of momentum at the moment, as Sonia is still coming back from ankle injury, while Sloane is winless since her run to the Roland Garros quarterfinals. I will pick Sloane to take this mid off, as she does have greater match rhythm. Kenin did make the semis in Toronto back in 2019, so she could rely on those good vibes. Anyways, I don't think that Sakkari is totally unbeatable, for Sloane especially, in my opinion. She herself doesn't have a lot of momentum and will be even more vulnerable in the earlier rounds. The third round is guaranteed to be tough for Maria, however, as she could face Amanda Anisimova, Barbora Krejcikova, or Karolina Pliskova. I'd have Karolina and Amanda come through to play each other once again for the second straight tournament, but this time I'm going to pick the Czech woman to take it. Pliskova is also my choice to advance to the quarterfinals. Looking down, 2019 champion Bianca Andreescu opens up against 11th seed Daria Kasatkina, who's currently in the San Jose semifinals. I would normally pick Bianca here, but the Canadian suffered a back injury during her San Jose opener, and it's honestly a bit of a question mark. This little mini section is very tricky, to be honest, as Caroline Garcia is there, who's been playing some really good tennis the past few months, winning titles in Bad Homburg and Warsaw. Then Jabeur will likely have a tough opener in Qinwen Zheng, who's been playing solid all season. Judging from current form, Caroline Garcia is probably the best player in this section, but something tells me that the game might not translate as well, at least right now, initially to the hard courts. I am going to stick with Jabeur here to take the section, as she just seems to be the steadiest player to go the deepest, if that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if last year's finalist Pliskova came through there as well, or even Anisimova. 4th seed Paula Badosa will likely start against Yulia Putintseva before possibly playing Jelena Ostapenko in round 3, Jessica Pegula in the quarters, Anett Kontaveit in the semis, and Iga Swiatek in the finals. Up top, Pegula would likely face Madison Keys in the opening round and could play Emma Raducanu in the third. Raducanu, though, has a difficult opener playing defending champion Camila Giorgi. I will give the edge to Giorgi here because she has far more firepower than Emma and can honestly take the racket out of her hand. Also, the Italian had a very close loss to Kudermetova at Silicon Valley, which tells me that she's playing decent level tennis at the moment. Should Pegula and Keys meet, I'm going with Jessica and picking her to move through to the quarters. There, I feel like she'd face Jelena Ostapenko. Neither Jelena nor Petra have played since Wimbledon, so it'll be interesting to see how they come out and play here. I think Ostapenko would honestly enjoy playing someone like a Badosa, who can't really hurt her as much from the ground. Should Jelena and Jessica meet in the quarters, I'm picking Pegula. Second seed Anett Kontaveit could play Venus Williams first, followed by Simona Halep in the third, Arna Sabalenka in the quarters, Badosa in the semis, and Swiatek in the finals. We don't have a lot of set-in-stone info here in this section due to there being 5 qualifiers that are yet to be placed. Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina are in the same boat coming into this event, as they both fell to Daria Kasatkina in matches they both really should have won. Sabalenka is obviously very talented, but I don't have a lot of faith in her going that far here, as she has the yips again on her second serve. She served a total of 43 double faults in her lone 2 matches in San Jose, which is absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, Elena and Coco Gauff could meet in round 2, which would be very, very interesting. Gauff is playing at a pretty high level right now, although she did falter halfway through her San Jose quarters match with Badosa. The forehand was much more solid that tournament for Coco, but it still is very much capable of being broken down. I think Rybakina would edge that matchup, and thus I'm going to have her move through there to make the quarters. I am concerned though that Elena is going through a post-slam funk after her Wimbledon win last month, similar to what's happened with Raducanu. Moving down, Simona Halep could play Shuai Zhang, followed by Annette Contaveit. 7-time champion Venus Williams could play the Estonian in the second round, but she has to get by Joe Teichmann first. Teichmann isn't the easiest opponent, but I feel like it's a winnable match for V. Williams always seems to do well against lefty opponents too, so that's a plus. Contaveit's the second seed, but she isn't a top 2 player right now in reality. She hasn't played like a true top 5 player since February, and I do think that Venus has a chance of getting the upset if she plays solid throughout the entire match. The 42-year-old though has never played her best tennis in Toronto, which is keeping me from having her go deep. Regardless, Halep is my pick to move through to the quarterfinals here. Simo did retire mid-match in DC due to heat exhaustion, so that's a bit of a concern, but I still think that she's going to bring a high level that'll get her through to the semifinals. For my predictions, I have Iga and Osaka in the semifinals, with Swiatek advancing to the finals, then Pegula and Halep with Simona making the final stage. Then I have Halep taking the title. I'm going to be real, I'm not confident at all with these predictions, and I feel like most of it is due to the greater unpredictability with Swiatek. During this streak, it almost seemed like a given that Iga would win all her tournaments, but now I feel like that era of invincibility has faded, and as I mentioned earlier, Iga's draw isn't the easiest. I still have faith though that her level will be high enough to get her through. Serena could come through and make another good run here as she's seemingly practicing very hard. She also has the braids in, which is a good omen because she always plays good in those braids. I could also see Naomi coming through and winning the whole tournament, but like with Serena, I'm just not confident in her game and match toughness at this point. I could see multiple people in Sakari's section go deep, but ironically enough, Sakari herself isn't one of my picks to do so. From Amanda, Carolina, Bianca, Daria, Caroline, Jinwen, and even Sloane, they can all win the title honestly. However, I am going to stick with Jabeur to advance through. To be honest, the last 2 sections are definitely weaker, especially the third one. Coco and Elena could take Halep's place and move through to the finals, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the Romanian. I feel like she's long overdue for a big title, and her game does seem to mesh well with the medium-paced court conditions in Toronto. Before I close this video out, here's a list of all the first round popcorn matches you should look out for. That's all for my Toronto Women's Tournament preview, and let me know what you think about the draw and my predictions in the comment section below. Do you think Swiatek and Halep are good picks? If not, who do you think will be in the finals and win it all? Also, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post new content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.